Fuck off. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of that show that will not be named. Today, I'm going to take a break from the anime and movies and TV aspects of the show, and we are going to focus on video games. Or more specifically, my favorite video game series that I feel nobody is talking about. That series being the House of the Dead series, first game released in 1996, the year I was born, no less. And the House of the Dead series, it's a zombie shooter, on rails, arcade cabinet. It's incredible. It's so cool. The story, the characters. Basically, first game is about these two guys. Agents G. Just G. It's just a G. Nothing else. No first name, no last name, just G. And Thomas Rogan. And they get a call from Rogan's fiance or wife or some shit. And she's like, oh my god, help, I've been kidnapped, blah, 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 blah. She works in some lab or something or other. It's this lab located inside this mansion owned by this dude named Dr. Kurian. Now, Dr. Kurian is this crazy dude who made zombies as some shit, or mutants as the series would eventually refer them to I guess, to disconnect them from being zombies. They're mutants. They're reanimated dead people. Come on, let's get real. They're zombies. Anyways, G and Rogan are dispatched to this giant-ass laboratory / underground catacomb place / hell house / mansion thing. And they go, and they gotta pretty much save Rogan's fiance, wife person, all the while fighting their way to Dr. Kurian, who has created a number of big baddies. I mean, you got your regular zombies and shit, but then you have your bosses. Giant spiders, sentinels that shoot shit out of their hands, a gargoyle thing that talks like its voice was put through some kind of, I don't know, a dehumidifier. I don't know technical terms. And this game was just so amazing. The music, the way that it looked. I have nightmares, mind you. I suffer from a lot of nightmares. And a lot of my nightmares growing up were in the style of how Sega made this game and how the other games exceeded it. I'd say probably my first ever exposure to the game came in the sequel, House of the Dead 2. There's a couple of them. And one thing I seem to notice about the House of the Dead series is it is very similar to Resident Evil. And I feel like, you know how what are they called? You remember the Transformers, right? And you know what are they called? The something bots or the K-bots or some shit like that. They had an argument about this in fucking Clerks 2. They're basically robots that are like the Kmart version of the Transformers. That's essentially how I see the House of the Dead. It's kind of the redhead stepchild sibling of the Resident Evil series. I mean, both series have evil guys, part of organizations, trying to take over the world, using the dead. They create big bosses that the characters, members of a secret operations unit, have to defeat at the end of each game or at the end of each level. It's basically just Resident Evil. But the way that they arrange everything, I like House of the Dead more than I like Resident Evil. And the way that I see it, I guess you could kind of put it up into that whole Star Trek or Star Wars thing where you're either a Resident Evil person or a House of the Dead person. 100% I'll always be a House of the Dead person. I think they should definitely continue the series. My biggest issue with the House of the Dead is that in recent years they have turned it into a fucking joke of a series. They had the typing of the dead. Then they had some kind of dead party thing. And then they had a level of it turned into a thing for fucking supersonic tennis or some shit. Where you battle in a graveyard and you gotta like play tennis while the zombies are coming after you. I'm like, that is so stupid. And they've just made joke versions of the game, spin-offs that were less serious than the original. I mean, they had a good 4 or 5 games going, and then they're just kind of like, it's over. And they were going to reveal something at the end. Basically, in the second game, there's this guy, Harry Harrison. And he gets after they fight a boss, he gets whacked in the hip or some shit with a giant chainsaw. I don't know. That's my interpretation of it. He gets injured badly, basically. And then in later games, they have these secret endings in the game where there's this guy coming around and it's be like, oh yes, I remember when this happened. Yes, it's okay, the final days will be upon us. No matter how much the AMS agency tries to blah, 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 we will defeat them. And the guy keeps walking with like a limp. He's got like a cane. So I came up with the assumption, holy shit, the bad guy at the ending of each game is possibly the future Harry Harrison, the agent of AMS from the second game. And they never really elaborated on that. They didn't do anything that seemed to indicate that that was the case afterwards, because it's just like, after the last game ended, the very last game was a prequel or a middle quel to basically the last game happened in between the second and third one. And it seemed kind of weird because it seemed like a complete ending game. I mean, what I liked about the House of the Dead series was it always focused on the here and the now. Like in Resident Evil, it shows you around the world, like, oh, look what's going on over there, look what happened over there. Whereas in the House of the Dead, people are more or less contained inside a little, area, or they're secluded in a place, and it's like, oh yes, the world is fucking falling apart outside. Did you know that the other nation the other day was wiped out? Holy crap. Yeah, half the world is in dismay. We are one of the last places that's surviving right now. And I like that, because it adds a sense of seclusion. Like, in the very last game, you are in the AMS headquarters. Like, for all these games, they're talking about, oh, the AMS, yes, I work for the AMS. Did you join the AMS? Oh, yes, the AMS. And it's like, what is this wonderful agency that everyone keeps talking about? And then in the last one, you're in the AMS agency. In one of the last ones. You're there! And you have to, I think it's House of the Dead 4. Yeah, it's definitely number 4. And in House of the Dead 4, you're in there, you're in the AMS agency, and it's completely overrun with zombies. I'm sorry, mutants. And you have to fight your way out. But at least you get to see, and then after you fight your way out, you go to the building from the second game. And I love the fourth game, because it's essentially a callback to the second one. Because you go through pretty much the same system, you go up into the same building, same settings, shit like that, but it's different, it's updated, it's like HD, it's not that old programming anymore, it's something new. So it's like, imagine playing a remastered version of the sequel. It was so cool. And of course you fight a 10 times more powerful creature. One of the characters ends up having, one of the main guys from the original number 2 has to end up sacrificing himself at the end, and it's just such a good game. And everything about it, if I had any gripe with the House of the Dead series, it's that it didn't continue. They didn't, finalize it up, because at the end of every single game, essentially the message that they sent across was, it doesn't matter how many times the good guys win, because evil shall prevail. And they never had one where, the bad guys were like, oh shit, good prevailed this time, and it's actually gonna be freaking permanent. They had none of that. So, I don't know. Here's hoping that Sega, I'm sorry, do they even exist anymore? I'm 90% sure they don't, unfortunately. Okay, somebody with respect and love for the original series, please make a finisher. I mean, it's okay if you can't get the voice actors back, because God knows if they're even around or if they went into hiding. I don't even know. I know little to nothing about. I would like concept art, I would like background information, shit like that. I mean, they made Overkill, but Overkill was so over-stylized and shit like that. I was not a fan of House of the Dead Overkill. It was alright for a prequel story, but it wasn't anything spectacular. And then it just kind of came and went, and it's like, oh, another zombie game. Look at that. Bye-bye. And then that was it. And then everyone stopped giving a shit. Not a fan. Definitely not a fan. Aside from that, I would also like to talk about Uwe Boll and his shit version of a movie of The House of the Dead. Absolutely horrible. It had, as usual, it had fucking nothing to do. Every time this guy makes a freaking movie out of a video game, it has nothing to do with the movie. Oh, wait, there were zombies in it. Oh, and a guy's name is Kurian. Oh, and there's a guy at the end of the movie that says his name is G. Fuck you. It's not the same thing. It was awful. It's moments like that where it's like, you know what? I have no filming experience whatsoever, but I could write a script, and I could probably produce a more faithful version of that movie than you ever could, than Hollywood ever could. In fact, I challenge them to that. If they want to drop money on this, I will write and direct a fucking House of the Dead movie, and it'll make the fans fucking cum their pants. It'll be excellent. It'll be like a shot, not a shot for shot remake of the video game, but so damn faithful. Like, I'd go all out on this, and I'd make it affordable. Like, no more than definitely under $1 million, far underneath $1 million. Like, you wouldn't even need to break that margin. You would just, and you know what else? Practical effects. Because that's where the key in lies. If they were to make a fucking version, if they were to make a movie of the House of the Dead nowadays, they'd have special effects at the yin-yang. They'd have, I could just imagine how the fucking, The Magician, one of the most iconic villains of this series, I just imagine how he would look. They'd make Dr. Curian Asian, they'd make G black, they would make Rogan a female, and the series wouldn't take place in America, it would take place in fucking somewhere nobody gives a shit about. Try to bring and then at the end of the movie they were going to be like, oh, this movie helped pay for the homes of blah 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 blah, because they're basically just going to take that movie and try to push some kind of agenda or save the environment or something to that effect with it. And it's going to be less about the movie and more about advertising their bullshit and spreading, like, oh, we're a construction company, please put us in there. And it's going to be like fucking, it's going to be in the credits. And no, you just need a fucking good film about this just to revamp the popularity a little bit. Get a different ending to this. And tell me if I'm the only one. Am I crazy? Am I the only one who thinks that this series is very underrated and this series seriously needs a good film, and B, a game to finish the series off? Please, I'm begging you, make it happen. And I think that's going to do it for this episode. I thank you all for listening to my ramblings once again, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.